All right, strap yourselves in, because today we're diving headfirst into the world of Gnosticism. And trust me, this isn't just some dusty history lesson. We're talking about a belief system that'll make you rethink everything you thought you knew about, well, pretty much everything. Personal enlightenment, a whole new way of looking at the universe. And ideas, oh boy, ideas that really shook things up back in the day, even challenging the early church. But the best part, this deep dive is all thanks to you. Yep, you sent this amazing document on Gnosticism, and we're here to break it down, pull out the juiciest bits, and see what made this belief system so different. So how do we even start unpacking something as complex as, well, Gnosticism?
Well, the document kicks things off by defining Gnosticism as basically a bunch of religious ideas that popped up around the late 1st century AD. And get this, they were all about personal spiritual knowledge, which they called gnosis.
Gnosis.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. Already sounds kind of mysterious and intriguing, right? But seriously, what's the big deal with this whole personal knowledge thing? Was it like everyone was just making up their own spiritual rules back then?
Well, to really get it, we got to rewind a bit, back to the context of the time. We're talking about very early days of Christianity, right? Things were still like under construction, big debates raging about the right beliefs, what it actually meant to be a follower of Jesus. It was a wild time. And here's the thing about the Gnostics. They weren't about blindly following priests or scriptures for answers. They believed that true knowledge, true gnosis, that came from a direct personal experience with the divine.
So instead of relying on some outside authority, some interpretation, you had to find that connection, that spark within yourself. Man, that's pretty radical, especially for back then, right?
Absolutely. And it's written all over their texts. While you see a lot of early Christian writings focused on sin, repentance, the whole afterlife scene, Gnostic texts, they're all about illusion versus enlightenment, this material world. Just a distraction, a veil hiding the real deal, the true divine reality.
It's like they flipped the script on spirituality, you know?
Yeah.
Not about rules and rituals, but about peeling back the layers and finding that truth inside yourself. Okay, now I'm starting to see why the early church leaders might have had a bit of an issue with these Gnostic folks.
Yeah, a bit of an issue might be an understatement. Gnosticism was a direct challenge to their authority, the whole institution they were building. Imagine being told you don't need a priest, you don't need a church to connect with the divine, that the power is already within you. Talk about disruptive.
Right, like offering a whole new operating system for spirituality, one where the individual is totally empowered. No wonder it ruffled some feathers. And speaking of shaking things up, the document dives into Gnostic cosmology, their whole view of the universe. And let me tell you, it's a wild ride. Get ready for a supreme hidden God, a not-so-perfect creator deity, and enough cosmic drama to make a blockbuster movie. But before we blast off into the cosmos, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll unpack this very unusual Gnostic worldview and explore just how much it shaped everything they believed. Okay, we're back and ready to tackle this whole Gnostic cosmos thing. The document mentions a supreme hidden God, which, all right, I'm intrigued, but then it throws in this whole other idea, a lesser divinity, even calls it malevolent sometimes, and this one is supposedly responsible for creating the material world. Did they just have something against, like, Mondays? What's the deal with this whole creation gone wrong story?
Well, it's definitely not your typical one God did it all kind of story. The Gnostics, they believed in a supreme God. Yeah, but this God was way, way beyond us. So transcendent, so pure that we here in the material world, we can't even wrap our heads around it.
Okay, so think of it like, I don't know, the supreme God is the sun.
Exactly. And our world, this whole material realm, it's just a faint little shadow compared to that.
Okay, all right, I'm starting to get the picture, but where does this lesser divinity, the one who supposedly made our world, fit into all of this?
Right, so this lesser being, sometimes they link him to the God of the Old Testament. He's often called the demiurge. And unlike that supreme God, pure perfection, right? The demiurge, he's seen as flawed, ignorant, maybe even messed up a bit when he made things. He creates the material world, sure, but it's like a cheap knockoff, a pale imitation of the true divine reality.
So not only is this demiurge working with, like, discount materials, but the whole design is inherently flawed from the get-go.
Exactly. And that's why the Gnostics, they didn't see the material world as some holy creation. It was inherently flawed, even straight up evil in their eyes. True salvation, it wasn't about saying you're sorry for your sins. It was about escaping this whole material mess altogether.
Through gnosis, right?
Through gnosis.
So less about being good or bad in the traditional sense and more about, like, waking up from the illusion of it all. Okay, that makes a weird kind of sense, but How did they explain this demiurge character in the first place? Did the supreme god, leave the oven on too long one day or something? How did this happen?
All right, well, this is where the story gets really interesting. The document, it mentions Sophia, which is Greek for wisdom.
Wisdom. Yeah.
Now, Sophia, she's an eon, an emanation of the supreme god.
Like a divine offspring, kind of.
Yeah, you got it.
So we've got these eons just hanging out in the pleroma, the realm of pure light. We covered that earlier.
Right, exactly. But here's where things take a turn. Sophia, being all wise and whatnot, she gets this idea. She wants to create something new, something all her own, independent of even the supreme god.
Got to be the one kid who colors outside the lines, right?
Right. But Sophia's creation, it doesn't go so well. It's flawed, it's unstable, and that, my friend, is the demiurge.
Hold on. So the demiurge, this creator of our whole flawed, messy material world, he's just a cosmic mistake, like a divine oops moment.
In a way, yeah. And it gets worse. This demiurge, he's totally clueless. He doesn't know he's flawed.
Yeah.
Doesn't know about the true divine reality beyond his own messed up creation. He actually thinks he's the top dog, trapping us all down here in this illusion.
Talk about an ego check waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes gnosis, that escape route, even more important, doesn't it? We're stuck in this cosmic oops. We need a way out. But we've got to take another break. Stick around, because when we come back, we're going deep on how the Gnostics actually sought this gnosis. And we'll meet some of the other key players in this wild cosmic drama. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so we've got, like a cosmic game of telephone going on here. Supreme God, these powerful eons, Sophia's out there making independent contracting decisions. And then poor clueless demiurge is down here with us in his cosmic fixer-upper. Wild family drama, right?
Huh. Yeah, you could say that. And it's right in the thick of all this that the Gnostics were searching for gnosis, that direct personal experience of the divine that we talked about. Remember, it wasn't enough to just, have faith or follow the rules. They believed true liberation, breaking free, it came from a deep inner knowing.
So how'd they actually try to achieve this gnosis? Are we talking special teas, chanting, staring contests with the cosmos? What's the secret?
If only it were that easy. For the Gnostics, gnosis, it was about waking up to that divine spark inside each of us, recognizing that connection to the supreme God, the source, and that took introspection, meditation, seeking wisdom from different places.
So less about outward stuff, rituals and all that, and more about cultivating that wisdom within. Makes you wonder, though, if the demiurge's whole deal is keeping us trapped down here. How easy were the Gnostics making it to find this gnosis? Were they spreading the word, or was it more like a secret club, password required and all that?
Great question, and it gets at the heart of the challenges they faced. The document even points out that Gnosticism, it wasn't some big unified movement.
Okay, so not like a franchise with brand guidelines, got it.
Right. There were all these different schools of thought, teachers with their own interpretations, their own ways of doing things.
So different flavors, different paths, but all leading towards gnosis, that inner knowing.
Exactly. But one thing that stayed consistent, their belief in the power of knowledge. I mean, gnosis itself means knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. For them, it wasn't just power. It was the key to unlocking our true potential, to escaping this flawed material reality we're stuck in.
Like they were saying, hey, the truth is out there, but you got to roll up your sleeves and dig for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But we can't talk Gnosticism without addressing, the big one, their relationship with early Christianity. The document hints at some, shall we say, disagreements.
It wasn't so much about disagreeing, but more like they were reading from totally different scripts.
Well, yeah, back then, early Christianity, it was like the Wild West of religion, right?
Yeah.
Everyone trying to figure out what they believed, who to follow.
Exactly. And while some Gnostics might have called themselves Christians, they didn't see Jesus in the same way as, say, the early church leaders did.
Okay, so what were they arguing over? Which miracles were the coolest or something? How are their interpretations different?
More like the core message, the heart of Jesus' teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Gnostics, they saw Jesus as this divine being. He came down here to share gnosis, to wake humanity up from its spiritual snooze fest.
So less about Jesus' death and resurrection being the way to salvation, and more about him being this guide to enlightenment, revealing the hidden truths.
Exactly. And this difference, this whole emphasis on personal enlightenment, it was a direct challenge to the early church, their authority.
Yeah, not exactly a recipe for winning most popular with the church leaders, huh?
You got that right. In fact, the document even mentions how the early church fathers, they labeled Gnosticism a heresy, went to a lot of trouble to make those Gnostic writings disappear, discredit them entirely.
Trying to wipe them from history. But here's what gets me, though. Despite all that, the Gnostic ideas, They didn't die out. They popped up again and again throughout history, like those dandelions, you try to get rid of them, but they always find a way back.
It really speaks to the power of ideas, doesn't it? The document even talks about the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library in 1945, a whole treasure trove of Gnostic texts hidden for centuries.
Talk about a plot twist. So even now, we're still putting the pieces together, finding these lost bits of Gnostic thought.
Exactly. And that discovery, it totally changed how we understand early Christianity, the sheer diversity of beliefs back then. It reminds us that history, it's messy, lots of voices, different perspectives, not always a neat and tidy story.
And sometimes those different perspectives, they hold incredible insights, even if they challenge what we think we know. So, as we wrap up our Gnostic deep dive, any final takeaways for our listeners?
I think the big one is this. Gnosticism, even with that heresy label slapped on it, it gives us this really unique, really valuable lens to view early Christianity through. How religious thought evolved, their focus on personal experience, inner knowledge, questioning what you're told, that still resonates today.
It's a good reminder to never stop questioning, right?
Yeah.
Be open to new ideas, even if they challenge what we think we know. Isn't that what the search for knowledge is all about? Well, on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of the Gnostics and the enduring power of their ideas. Remember, the truth, much like gnosis itself, is often a journey.